What's up, my friend? Welcome back. Today's video was inspired by a friend who reached out with a question. That question was, hey man, do you have any suggestions for pulling out of a rut? I can't seem to be consistent or have motivation for longer than 20 minutes at a time. I'm going to share 4 different things that will help you to pull yourself out of a rut, as well as learn the lesson that it's here to teach you. So I don't know about you, but this season of life has been quite hard. It seems like a lot of different people I've talked to have been in a rut, myself included. And sometimes when you find yourself in like the winter season of life where things seem a little bleak, they're slow, and you're feeling a little lowly, it's easy to get stuck there. And so, like I mentioned, within my life, I've found myself in a rut so many different times, whether it was in the mix of going through challenging transitions or just generally riding the waves of life. There's been a lot of different things that I've experimented with over the years that have helped me to pull myself out of a rut. And right now, as I pull myself out of a rut, here's what's working for me. And this is what I shared with my buddy here. So the first step to pulling yourself out of a rut is to find the root of the rut. In other words, find the root cause, the thing that is causing you to feel stuck in the first place, to feel like you're in a rut. A couple ideas and things that typically happen with myself and the other men that I've worked with is the root of the rut can be caused by a couple different things. Number one, unprocessed emotions. So if you're like most men, we have a hard time expressing our emotions, and that could be as simple as, man, I'm feeling sad, but I'm just going to swallow it and stomach it because, you know, men don't cry, that type of shit. Or maybe someone pissed you off, and rather than reacting out of anger, you stuffed that anger, and so now it's just been like, you know, sitting inside of you for a long period of time. Or maybe a little while ago, you lost a loved one, had a breakup or a divorce, or just some shitty thing happened to you that left you with a lot of grief that you didn't properly process. The fun thing is that those things just don't go away. You ignoring your emotions, or even myself, speaking to myself, ignoring our emotions just simply doesn't work. It's going to come back with a vengeance later because your body's like a container, right? And just like any container, it has a certain limit, a certain capacity to how full it can get. And so most people, when they get full, right, their emotional capacity is at its limit, they have a feeling of numbness. And most people that get in a rut, myself included, notice they're in a rut because they feel numb. You're like, man, I just feel completely checked out from life right now. I could give a shit less, right? The thing is that numbness is not a lack of feeling. It's that you have such a complexity of feelings or emotions that you're unable to begin even processing them. And so the first step is to identify what are the unprocessed emotions that I've been avoiding. Am I walking around and I'm fucking pissed off and I just don't want to admit it to myself? Am I feeling grief from my breakup or from, you know, this shitty thing that happened in my life? Am I feeling sad because I'm upset with how my life looks and I feel like it's all worth nothing? Like, what is it, right? Get honest with yourself and stop avoiding those emotions. So take a second, breathe, check in with yourself, and then try to honor those emotions, or at least give like, what's the word, acknowledgement to those emotions, right? Like maybe take a second to journal about it, or just even like acknowledge yourself and be like, yeah, I've been feeling really upset lately, and here might be why. So that's step one. Check your unprocessed emotions within, so back up. Step one is find the root of the rut. You do that by, number one, checking in with your unprocessed emotions. Number two, you might have some limiting beliefs. So my question to you would be, what beliefs are you carrying that are holding you back from getting yourself out of this rut? Is it a belief that you're not good enough? A belief that, you know, life is fucked and you're just kind of stuck where you're at? Maybe, you know, you're feeling that way because of a lot of different things. You could be not trusting yourself, for instance, because in the past you haven't stayed consistent with the things that are important to you, or maybe you've made some mistakes and now you feel like you have a lack of trust with yourself. So the belief is that you don't believe in yourself. There could be so many different things. I talked about this, worthiness. So you don't think you're worthy, so rather than show up, you shut down. Whatever you believe, it's either going to be your saving grace or the thing that drowns you and keeps you stuck in a rut. So my question to you is, what beliefs do you have that are holding you back? And assuming you checked in with your unprocessed emotions, step two, like we talked about, you looked into your limiting beliefs. Step three, the root of most people's rut is something I like to call self-sabotage. In other words, your life's fucked up, right? Or you are fucking your life up based on your actions and behaviors. So what that looked like for me is a lot of different things. Distracting myself with social media, avoiding my routine that I set for myself because, you know, I was being lazy, or maybe it was watching pornography or chasing women or whatever. There's so many different ways that men can chase their own tail, or people can in general. And self-sabotage is something that it's basically your bad habits. Like, how are you showing up in a way that you're fucking yourself over, right? A couple of things that I wrote down here. Do you procrastinate, and instead of doing the things you need to do you watch social media, play video games, watch pornography instead of handling your responsibilities? Maybe you make yourself excessively busy instead of taking time to rest. That's something I definitely do, which is why I'm very much loving being in Ecuador right now, soaking up the slow pace and just the time to reflect and relax. Maybe you have shitty time management, financial, communication, or relationship skills, and you know it, but you're not doing anything about it. Those are all examples of self-sabotage. So my question to you is, what habits do you have that aren't serving you? So once you've identified what emotions do I have, what beliefs do I have, and what habits do I have currently that are holding you back or potentially tripping you up, you've now found the root of the rut. So that's step one, find the root of the rut. Step two is get clear. So once you've dug into why you're in a rut, start to plan and get clear on what the way out looks like. There's a loud ass bird over there. I'm not sure what that's gonna sound like on the video, but we're gonna keep it in. You want to get clear or get a plan going as far as what your priorities are moving forward. Now that you've taken a second to acknowledge why you're in a rut in the first place, maybe you realize like, man, I'm carrying a lot of emotion, or I've got some shitty beliefs, or I've got these bad habits. Those are all indicators of things you could work on or could, make peace with to move forward out of this rut. So getting clear is, for me, I basically just take inventory and get super honest with myself. I'm like, okay, I think I'm in the rut because of this reason. Here's my best guess on how the fuck I get out of this place, because I recognize that it's a part of life. That's totally fine, but I don't want to stay here, right? I don't want to just go through the motions every day and feel like shit and be upset with the way my life is going. And so you want to get clear, right? A couple other things that I wrote down is maybe it's mixing up your schedule, taking intentional time for yourself outside of your work or family or other things that you've been spending your time on. Maybe you need to get a clear vision on what you're working towards in your life. So deeper than goal setting, like where are you headed? What kind of life do you want to live? What kind of person do you want to be? And start to kind of chart the course to that, because that's a North Star basically that can get you out of this rut. So you found the root of your rut. You took time to get clear on potential next steps and why you're here in the first place. And now you want to get moving. That's step 3, get moving. So what that looks like is take action. So that could be as simple as maybe your house is a mess. Clean up your house, right? Just get momentum by checking off some basic boxes that start to give you that positive feeling of like, okay, I'm back in control, I'm back in the groove, and I'm getting shit done, right? A couple of things that you might want to look at is commit to a challenge for a period of time. So maybe you need to challenge yourself for 90 days with fitness, or to read 10 pages a day. Or currently right now, how I'm getting myself out of a rut is doing 75 hard, which is created by Andy Frisella. Shout out to Andy, which is 75 days of some crazy shit. 2 workouts a day. I'm also doing cold showers and a bunch of other stuff. And maybe that's not for you, but I know for me, whenever I challenge myself, it can start to remind me of who I am and get me out of a dark place, because I'm shaping myself through those challenges. Something else you could look at doing is maybe finish something you've been putting off. So I've heard something by Mark Hoverson, old marketer guy. I just heard about him through one of my mentors, but he had this idea of the $1 million day, where he would write down all the things that he'd been procrastinating and how long he'd been procrastinating them for, and he would take care of all of them in one day. So maybe you haven't cleaned your room in a week. That's 1 week. Maybe you haven't gone to the bank to cash a check for 3 weeks. You write that down. Maybe you haven't got back to a person in a month. So you take inventory, and you might be procrastinating, 30 years worth of shit based on the amount of time you put them off. And he would take 1 day to get all those things done. And maybe that's not for you, but again, these are just suggestions. You just got to get moving. To get out of a rut, you have to get out of it, meaning you need to actually take the time to create forward movement as well as evidence for yourself that something is changing. So lastly, I guess I would say that is like stack some points on the scoreboard for yourself, right? That's how you get moving, is creating evidence and taking action towards something that looks different, or a version of yourself that looks different, or a situation in your life that looks different than where you're currently at. So last step is celebrating and reflecting. So the most important thing that I'm learning in my life at the moment is how important it is to celebrate yourself and to really train your mind to look for the good things in life. Your brain defaults to negativity. So you might have been in a rut for a while and you're like, man, I feel like such a piece of shit. And so your internal self-talk reflects that. And every time you make a mistake, you're like, oh, I fucking knew it, or, just another day, or same shit, different day, what people say. Or maybe like, just my luck, or whatever. Some people say crazy shit like that. The important thing is that when you're getting yourself out of a rut, that you look for ways to positively reinforce the actions you're taking, the things that you are doing, the way you're showing up to get yourself out of that rut. So taking time to celebrate. When maybe you woke up, you've been procrastinating for a while on waking up early, whatever that is to you, and tomorrow you wake up at 5 a.m. You better be fucking stoked. Like, I'm talking, pat yourself on the back, you're a champion, that type of behavior or attitude towards yourself to reinforce, like, man, I'm doing something about it. Maybe you've been putting off your health and fitness for a while and you went to the gym this week. Write that shit down. Give yourself a pat on the back. Again, you want to celebrate as well as reflect on your progress. The last thing, I said celebrating and reflecting. Reflection goes a little bit deeper than just looking at your wins. Reflecting is making sure you are kind of looking into what you're doing as you get yourself out of the rut and document it along the way. Asking yourself, is this working? How am I feeling? What am I noticing, right? Because a lot of these periods of your life, they have so much growth in them, just waiting for you to tap in. And all you need to do is just create a little time and space to reflect on why you got there, how it's going getting yourself out, and maybe even writing down what you did, similar to what I did, so you can pass it along and share it with someone else. I like this idea of documenting and checking in with yourself so you can make sure you're moving in the right direction or if you're going back in the wrong direction. And by creating those checks and balances, you help yourself to not only get out of this rut, but not to return to this version of it again. Because the shitty thing is that you're going to be in a rut again in your life. The great thing is you're now going to have the tools to get yourself out of it, no matter what that rut looks like. And the last thing is you want to make it a game you can win. So don't, getting yourself out of a rut is not about pendulum swinging yourself to this completely different version of yourself, because that's probably unsustainable and going to get you stuck again. You want to make it a game you can win. Just what boxes can I check? What points can I put on the scoreboard to remind myself of the direction I'm moving in, and realize that it is about making progress, not being perfect. Any movement is positive movement. So making sure to, like we talked about, reflect and celebrate those wins, reflect on and celebrate those wins, reflect on and celebrate your progress. And yeah, just remember, it's not about being perfect, because we're not perfect. Maybe tomorrow you start this new thing and the next day you drop the ball. Acknowledge the time you showed up for yourself, and then reflect on the time you failed and maybe why, what happened. Maybe you have another belief creeping in or some emotion that's coming up or whatever. You can now identify those things, which is beautiful. So I hope this has helped as much as it's helped me as I reflected on this in the last couple weeks as I've been getting myself out of a rut, and had my friend Austin reach out and ask what I've done. I hope this helps, brother. But otherwise, I'd like to hear from you guys in the comments. How long have you been in a rut? If you're in one right now, what have you done in the past to get yourself out of it? And what advice would you give to yourself the next time you find yourself in one? So feel free to drop something like that in the comments. Like and share with a friend who needs to hear this message. Until next time, guys,